Hello everyone, it's Brittany from Porcelain Gardens, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite perennial greens that we grow in our garden. And I actually have 4 varieties of sorrel growing in my garden right now. 2 of them are plants that are cultivated that I started from seed, and 2 of them are wild sorrel varieties that are growing. So one of the ones we're going to be talking about today is red vein sorrel. And this is one that's very popular with chefs. It's actually probably my least favorite flavor-wise, because these leaves tend to be less tender than the other varieties. But it grows well in a container, and I have a big patch of that growing in my garden. When you're first learning about sorrel, something you'll probably read a lot about is the oxalic acid that's found in sorrel. A lot of people are concerned about consuming high levels of oxalic acid, and I agree, but we have to remember that oxalic acid is found in lots of things. It's found in spinach, parsley, in different tea, beer, almonds, chocolate, and in other wild edibles like purslane, dock, amaranth. So it is commonly found in lots of different plants all throughout nature. I would suggest not consuming pounds of it every single day. It is something that we've been consuming daily, like in our green smoothies for most of the summer, because the plants just keep producing all summer long here in our North Carolina garden. So I would just advise, if you have kidney issues or other health issues, just do your own research, do some reading on oxalic acid and the effects it may or may not have on your body. I think if you're a healthy person and you're just consuming small amounts of it, you shouldn't have any problems, but I'm not a doctor, that's just my personal experience. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and show you the 4 different varieties of sorrel that I'm growing and give you some tips about harvesting, and also then I'll show you how I would start it from seed. Okay, the first variety we're going to talk about is wood sorrel. This is a wild version of sorrel. It grows many places. It's actually one of the first wild edibles I ever learned about. And you can see it looks a lot like clover, but the way you can tell the difference is it has these heart-shaped leaves versus clover is more rounded. And one of the cool things about sorrel is it has a lemony taste. It's kind of like sour tasting. And these right here, these right here are the seed pods for the wood sorrel. And as they become more mature, they turn brown. And if you bump up against it, the seeds will just explode out of the pod and disperse themselves all over the garden. So this is one that just pops up naturally in my garden. And you can see, I'll show you one of the flowers for it. So there's the little yellow wood sorrel flower. And I really like just letting this grow in my garden because these leaves are so small. I find it's probably one of the most tender of the sorrels. And I bet if you go outside and look around, you'll find this growing in your yard or in your garden too. Okay, here's the second wild sorrel variety that's growing in my garden. And this is the first time I've really seen this. It was just already growing here on my land. And you can see the shapes here. I think they're what would be described as lance shaped. At first I thought it was arugula. This is sheep sorrel. And I find this one, the leaves are kind of thicker and more succulent. And I think this one is definitely more tender than the red vein sorrel. I really like the flavor of this variety. And it's kind of, when it first started coming up here in this spot in my garden, it was just a little section, and it's kind of just spreading out by its roots. And I really like this variety. I haven't seen it go to seed yet or seen what the flowers look like on this variety, but I think this is a great variety of sorrel, and I'm really enjoying watching it grow for the first time this season. Okay, so here are the 2 varieties that I've started from seed. I'm just showing you them here so you can kind of see the differences in size between the 2 plants. So we have the red vein sorrel here on the right, and then the green garden sorrel on the left. Alright, now let me take you to different plantings so I can show you each of these plants better. Okay, so here I have a big clump of the green garden sorrel. And you can see, it's harder to see on this variety. I'll be able to show you better on the red vein sorrel. But the way that it grows here is like, it will start out as one plant, and then new leaves come up in the center. Like you can see this little baby leaf right here. And then you can see that there's multiple plants, and they kind of just like expand themselves. This one is a much larger leaf than a lot of the other varieties, but it's kind of like smooth, silky, and if you eat the smaller leaves, especially like this size right here, they're going to be quite tender. They're very tasty. These are the ones we've been putting in our smoothies, and we really like them. They also make a great salad green, and they are really tender. These ones are probably the most sour tasting, like have the most lemony flavor. That's what I really like about them. Okay, so you can see here that these outer leaves here are dying. So to clean up this plant, I would just remove all of these outer leaves that are dead, and that will allow more new growth to come on in the center of the plant. Okay, here's my planting of red vein sorrel in my garden. And I've learned a lot about red vein sorrel this season. It's really been my first season growing it. And what I've learned is, in order for these plants to taste good, I really think they taste better when they're grown in the shade or in partial shade. These are in full sun, and you can notice all the debris on the ground here. Actually, since we don't eat these a lot, I went through and I removed all of the outer leaves like I was showing you on the green sorrel. And you can see the clumps of these easier than you can on the green sorrel. So let's look at this plant here. You can see that there's actually multiple plants within this one clump, because that's how they spread. And you can see well, it's kind of hard to see. This right here is a new leaf, the tiny little stem. So here, you can see it in the center, in the crown of the plant. These narrow leaves here are poking up. That's the new foliage that's coming on. And that's going to be the most tender. As far as like if you're wanting to sell this sorrel to chefs, this is really the ideal size of leaf. Small leaves like this are going to be the most tender. Anything that's large like this is just going to be more dry and woody. But leaves, the sorrel, what's so great about it is it's just such a beautiful leaf. I mean, just adding this into a lettuce mixture will just make it look so pretty and beautiful. So that's red vein sorrel, and again, I really think this is the least tasty out of all of the sorrels that I've grown, but it is definitely the most beautiful. Okay, so growing sorrel from seed. These are the two different seeds that I grew out this year. Johnny's Selected Seeds, red vein sorrel, and high mowing, just green garden sorrel. And behind it, this is a sorted tray that I start my herb plants in, mostly because I don't always have perfect germination with them, and using a plant training like with cells, I find that I have a lot of empty cells, which when you have limited space is frustrating. So I grow my seeds in trays like this, and you'll find mixed information about growing sorrel from seed. Like even on the backs of these two packs, this one says to start the seeds 1/4 inch deep, and then this one says seeds require light for germination. I have had the best results when I barely cover the seeds with soil. So I would just do a row, like if I was gonna plant this row here of sorrel, I would just sprinkle the seeds all along and then just lightly cover it with soil. And that's how I've had the best luck. If anytime I've planted the seeds deeper, they just haven't came up. Alright, and that's how I would set. And when I did grow the sorrel from seed, I started them before my last frost date. I started them indoors like 6 to 8 weeks early, and then I moved them out when it was warmer outside. Okay, so that's what I know about sorrel. I do hope that y'all consider growing sorrel, both for its ease of growth. It's a perennial. It'll come back every year. And it's just a really tasty, unique plant that I've really enjoyed learning about and growing this year in my garden. And if you have any questions, please leave them below. Let me know your experiences growing sorrel. If you have any other varieties that you would like to recommend to people so we can all learn together more about this plant sorrel.